So there is a folder in week 16 called Z2. And if you want to play along, then you can grab the files. There it is. So I want the zip file. I want the documentation. So I need to go and expand my zip file. It's got some directories in it. And after I expand it, what I see is that there's an index.html, which is typically the file, at the root of your server path. Even though we don't see that anymore, it used to be that whenever you'd access a web page, you'd see index.html at the end of it. And it used to be that if you ever left the file name blank, it would substitute index.html. And nowadays it seems like, I know I did that recently with with Rose, and it just served up an error, which I thought was odd. Right. Huh. Yeah, it's fascinating. I have to send a picture of that to the administrators. Oh, that's rose.com. Didn't I mean to type rose.edu? All righty. No wonder. All right. So anyways, right, file directory not found. So Rose does not actually map index.html to the root, which a lot of people do. So anyways, we go back and look here. We've got this HTML file. That's the file that would be viewed when people, access our website. I'm just going to double click on it. It's probably going to launch it inside Chrome or not. Once more. Well, okay, fine. Nothing's going to open it. There we go. All righty. So here it is. But here's what it looks like when I open it, but it's not a fully engaged website. It doesn't really work. If I click on this voting poll thing, it's trying to launch a Python file. And if I actually launch that Python file, it's not going to do what I want it to do. It's going to run some scripts. This stuff is supposed to be running on a server, and the only communication I'm supposed to have with it is via the browser accessing a web server. So let's go and look at those scripts. Let's go and see what's going on here. We've got this called simple_httpd.py. And I'm going to open that with idle. All right. So Python comes with class, or a library of modules called HTTP, including the classes HTTP Server and CGI Get Request Handler. And if we so chose, we could go and we could Google up information about these things, like Python HTTP Server. HTTP Server is not recommended for production. It only implements basic security checks, et cetera, et cetera. How about this one? Anyways, Be interesting to read more about that, but I'm not gonna. What does this do? This is the script. This is going to be our web server. We're going to run this program, and it's going to sit there and wait for socket requests. And then when it gets a socket request, it's going to try to field the requests. So when we try to access index.html, it's going to open that file, right? Any file name that we pass in, it's going to try to handle. So it's certainly not very secure. But anyways, if I'm going to go ahead and run this. And so it's running on port 8080. That's not a bad idea. At least get it out of the regular port range so that, you know, if somebody was trying to browse and open up all the files on my machine, they wouldn't be able to find it. So I need to access port 8080 and see what's going on there. All right, my own machine, I can call localhost. I could also spell it correctly. That'd be impressive. :8080. And you see what happened? The server daemon printed out that we had several accesses. There was an access to get one document, and then it also got forever.css, and then it got the icon file. So if we come back and look, indeed it's true, there's a CSS file in here. Let's go take a look at that. Yeah, like you could see that. I did start the recorder at a certain point, didn't I? Yes, good. All right. So we can see that it's got some style information. Without this style information, the Beatles webpage would not look nearly as pretty, right? It's got you know, declarators for how headers should look and captions should look and what a table should look like and so on. And so if index.html did not have a reference to this, it would not look nearly as nice. So if I go in and I look at index.html and right click on it and open it with TextEdit, and you're not going to have to change any of the HTML files. This is just for fun. All righty, that's not what I wanted to do. I think I'm going to have to open it with TextPad. Because it processed it as HTML. It did not process it as the text. All right, here we go. Now this should look more familiar. Right? Welcome to BeatlesForever.com. And here's our style sheet, forever.css. I'm going to break our web page. Don't do this if you're following along. By making the CSS say for you forever.css. Why am I doing that? Because then, I mean, I could just delete that line, right? I'll have to remember to replace it, but I think I can do that. All right. So now when I try to access that web page, I'm going to do a refresh. I'm not sure that I see the difference, but on the other hand, there's not much really to see on this web page. Oh. Now I'm going to put that line back in and refresh. And so we do see some differences. This is what it looks like when it's using the fancy CSS. This is a good example of showing the differentiation between content and decoration. Your CSS, your cascading style sheets provides the decoration, whereas your web page provides the content. So here's our content. What does it do? It's got an image in it. It's got this header, and then it's got a reference to a voting application. And that voting application is written in Python. Well, let's see what it does first before we go and open up to see how it does it. So for now, all you'll find is the voting poll. Enjoy. Waiting for localhost. I do hope this works. I've never actually tried it on the Mac. All right, it seems to be hanging there. If I go back over to idle, well, it's got those requests here. It's called a get on CGI voting.py. I'm going to close the HTML because I'm not going to be making any more changes to it. Well, is it totally broken? If I try to open the web page using Firefox, am I going to get the same results? Localhost, please, on port 8080. Okay, well now, yeah, see, this is why you would not run a web page on Python, a server on Python. It seems to have hung. I'm going to kill the shell, launch it again. Address already in use. Shouldn't have been. How long are you going to keep holding that address? You ever going to let it go? No, I guess you're not. All righty. Okay. I'm going to have to change that every time. So there it is. Where's my link to the voting poll? Click that. All right, that just flat out isn't working. So I'm going to close all my things and then try to do it from within Windows. That is deeply disappointing. No, it ran the Mac version of idle. Stop it. I don't know where to find it. There he is. All right, try it again. All right, let's try it again. Port 8081. Well, who fielded that request? This may be crashing and burning. Hmm. Well, that is a huge disappointment. Maybe if I'm using the web browser inside Windows. Yeah, that worked. I'll stop it. I don't care about who my default is. All right. And then I click on that and it served it up. Okay, we're back in action. I don't know how to get it to work on a Mac. So on the Mac users, you can just watch and enjoy. For the PC users, it actually should be going. And I'm going to open up the instructions because since I've been bouncing around, it probably hasn't been making as much sense. Let's look at them. Alrighty, so downloaded the web app file. I've launched idle and I used file open to locate the daemon script. And then I run the script. Runs a very simple web server that comes packaged with Python. And that shell has to keep running during the assignment. If it ever crashes, you just got to restart it. When you run the script, you might get a firewall message, allow Python to run through the firewall. And then use your favorite browser to open localhost 8080, or if you've had to change a port number like I did, whatever port number. You'll see a Beatles web page. View the source code for the page. You can right click and view source and go to the voting poll page. So let's go take a look, see what we got here. This is the main page. Right click and view source. Oh, since I opened it in index, I don't know how to view source. Not window, in Edge. Let's use a browser I'm more familiar with. All right, so here it is. And if we view the web page, we'll see pretty much the same code that is in that index.html file. There are no, I think this is just 100% the contents of that file with no changes whatsoever. So the web server just got the request to open that file, and it did, and it sent it over the connection, and my web browser got it as a text file and is displaying it. I mean, as HTML and is displaying it. And we're going to click on the voting poll. We go and we look at the voting poll, and so I'm going to view its page source. And it has all sorts of yummy HTML. Now, where in the world did that come from? If I look, oh, it's not, there's not even an HTML file called voting.html. It's just a Python script. Without the Python server running, this would not be able to generate at all. So I'm going to go and look at that. So all the Python scripts that make up this web application are located in a directory called CGI-bin. And here's the one that index.html links to. It has that ahref that says here's the poll, but instead of a file name ending in .html, it's got a file name ending in .py. And so the Python web server, when it detects a click on that link, actually executes this script. And let's take a look at it. Okay, import yate. And it tends to be a joke among some programming circles that when you invent something that there's already another example of, you call it yet another. And so YA probably stands for yet another. Let's Google up what yate is. Well, yet another template library is what it is. This is coming up totally silly things. Yeah, it's not coming up with stuff. It's a template library. So if we look at it, when the web server accesses that page, it runs this script. It comes up with a list of band members, good old John, Paul, George, and Pete. And the template library prints a response, a start of the response, which is going to generate the part of the web page. Now I have way too many programs going. This is the start of the response, right? It begins with HTML and it begins with head. And if I come over here and I look, so it includes the header, Beatles forever. I can zoom in on this, right? And then it starts a form. Here's the form. We didn't talk about forms, but it's one of the things that you can put inside your web page along with images and stuff like that is a form where you have fields that the user can input, and then there's a submit button. And so inside the form, when they actually submit it, it's going to open up this web page. But notice again, it doesn't have HTML, and quite often would, but instead it has the name of a script. So when they click the submit button, it's going to run this script. And so the text of it, who is the best Beatle of all time, was generated by that. And then for every band name in the band, it prints a reference to a so-called radio button. The radio button is just these things, right? And so it steps through our list, building a radio button for each one. And then there's a end form. That's the bottom of the page down here. Gosh, I need to close some of these things. So the end of the form has the select button in it. And then we have another paragraph of text, and we have a link back to our home page, our index.html. So we could edit this. We are elite hackers. We are going to change things on this. There, who is the worst Beatle of all time? So then I just save it. I Control-S to save it. I'm going to go back to my web browser and I'm going to access the page again, refresh it. Well, I need to go to home. Yeah, see, there it said it. Who's the worst Beatle of all time? Beatles forever. Who is the worst Beatle of all time? John, Paul, George, and Pete. Go Pete. He hasn't been a member of the Beatles since 1963. We're definitely going to have to replace that. We're going to have to fix it. So we need to change the code to say Ringo instead of Pete. Also, the names are not displayed in the order that we want. So the reason why is the band name is declared as a set, and a set is an unordered list of information. You have no control of the order that a set comes out. But all we have to do to make it a list is to change the parentheses, those things, the braces, to that. All right, now to display them in order, but we do want this to say Ringo. And so now I need to save it. And when I go back to my web browser and I refresh it, I thought I said localhost was supposed to be not in dark mode. And it's in the traditional order. Wait, that doesn't say Ringo. There we go, right? John, Paul, George, and Ringo. It's funny, now that it's serving that up, even when I hit backspace, I'm not able to get the old version of the file, right? It's not loading up the version that had Pete in it, no matter how many times I hit the back arrow. And that's because the web server is invoking that Python script to generate the HTML each time. There's no actual file, right? You know, it's not, there's no cached copy of the file for me to access. It's just generating a new web page each time I try to access this. All right, so let's see what happens if I choose somebody. It's funny, I saw it pop up a black window for a moment. I don't know what that was about. That may have been too fast for you to see. Vote results, Beetle John. Right on, man. Love is all you need. Home, which is just a link to index.html. If I could, yeah, if you see down way down in the corner in that tiny print, it says, okay, that's a link to localhost 8082 index.html. Or vote again, which would run us to voting.py. It would just run that script again. I'm going to choose Ringo. That's boring. It's the same message. It doesn't matter which Beetle you choose, it prints out the same message. That's unsatisfying. All right, let's go look. What else are we going to do? So let's go dig into voteselected.py. And we want to change the script to what we see on the next page. Well, we're certainly going to at least play around with it. So let's go and grab that file. Many little things. All right. So open up the vote selected file. Oh, and there's some things in here that I need to delete. Athlete list, athlete model. No, we don't have any of that. But we do have vote selected and voting.py. Oh, and here's Yate. Let's take a look at what Yate is. You can see what it does. If you call para and you pass in some text, it just returns that text surrounded by paragraph tags. If you call header and you pass in some header text, it returns that text enclosed in header tags, and so on. And so if you say, please add a button, then you pass in the button name and the button value, and it returns all of the HTML that would be necessary to add that to the form. The reason that you would do something like that is because it's a lot easier to be able to add a button with just one call, right? Than it is to have to code all that HTML that would generate it. Because if we go back and we look at the difference, view page source, right? That's a lot of stuff. But using that using that template function, then you just pass it the name of the values and it generates the rest of it. So I wanted to get that other one. I wanted to get vote selected.py. Let's go take a look at that. Keep clicking on that. All right. So import CGI, import CGI TV, CGI TV enable, import Yate. All righty. So start our response. What is that going to do? Let's go look at Yate and see what the response start is. It just returns this string. Content type, text, HTML, followed by two blank line, two character terms. And then include the header for the vote results. Print that out. And then we need some form data. So CGI field storage, the name of the form data is which beetle. So we're extracting from the results of the submit which beetle that they chose, because in the other form that we have, when they click the select button and it hits our web server with a post command, it's going to be sending this information based on the buttons and the input fields on the page, of which there's only, one input field effectively. And that input field is accumulatively the radio buttons. And so when it hits the post and it hits the web server to send this information to the web server, the request is going to include the which beetle field and what it is set to based on what they selected. So if our web server is still running in the background in the shell, see, each time we accessed a web page, we got a get command. But then when that button is pressed, the browser sends a post command and accesses vote selected. And part of the information that it sends to the server, it's not displaying all the HTML, unfortunately. It'd be kind of interesting to see if we could figure out how to do that. Includes the input data on that form, which specifically is the field which says which beetle was selected. And so this script here in vote selected is going to grab out of the form data which beetle dot value, which is going to be either John, Paul, George, or Ringo. And so we could make it a little bit more interesting, right? Instead of just printing right on, man, love is all you need, we could inspect the name just with an if statement and programmatically, choose a different message for each beetle. And so this has a sample. For example, if the name is equal to John, we print one thing. Else, if the name is equal to George, we print something else. And this is pretty harsh. No one really likes George anyways. George is my wife's favorite beetle. She would be so insulted if she saw this. If name Paul. Paul lives on a yellow submarine. If name is Ringo. Ringo gets by with a little help from his friends. Else, and then say that none of these are right. We just have a default message. Right on, man. Name, whoever they managed to pick, is our favorite. So let's do that. Let's go in and so we have their name that we got from the fields that came in. So if name is equal to John, colon. And I'm going to just copy this. Strawberry Fields forever. If the name is equal to Paul. I have no idea what thing I suggested for Paul. Paul lives on the Yellow Submarine. Okay, so this isn't. Of the name is George. A is equal to Yate.paragraph. If the name is Ringo. Is equal to Yate.para. Yes, best drummer in history. Else, we're just gonna go ahead and put the default message. Right on, man. I'm gonna make this a formatted paragraph so that I can put a placeholder here. Name is the best. Accidentally put a close quote there. Don't want that. Alrighty. And I'd like to actually see that happen. So I'm going to misspell Ringo here so that it can't serve up the correct text. All right, so I'm going to go back. I saved that document. I didn't say so, but I did Control S before I tabbed away from it. I'm going to go to the voting poll. I'm going to choose Ringo. Now voting select is checking for Ringo with 2 R's or whatever, so there's no entry in that if statement for Ringo. So instead, it served up the default message, which is right on, man, Ringo is the best. All right, that's actually it. Just wanted you to get the idea that
The name didn't change.
Pardon me?
It was still spelled Ringo with 1 O instead of 2 O's.
Yeah, I purposely misspelled it so that it would invoke that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean like that.
Okay.
So that's the idea. The web server is invoking Python to generate HTML to feedback. And HTML code can be generated by any number of programming languages and frameworks, and Python is probably not among the top 3 or 4, but it is one way you could do it. I've seen really sophisticated web frameworks that use Java, for example. And the only reason that I've seen that is because I was interested in Java and I had to program it in Java. And I know that, C# and the .NET framework is an incredibly influential, widely used framework for generating web pages. So what we could do is if we got a request for a file, we could just open that file and serve it, right? Instead of generating a template response, this could just be and this isn't going to, really don't think I'm going to do it this way, but after we've started our response here, it could just be an open file, right? F is equal to open something for reading. Now I don't have a file to read, so I'm going to make a new file and then save it in there. All right, I need to save that in the same directory as the rest of that stuff. So let's go and find it. CGI bin, okay. Test.html. It's not very good HTML, right? Because it doesn't have the header, the HTML tags and the body tags and stuff like that, but that's okay. Because the template is supposed to be generating that. So here, we begin our response, which is just going to send the HTTP headers. And then we're going to open our file, test.html. And we're going to read our file in line by line. For every line in the file, we're going to print that line. Now, I should strip it, but seeing as how browsers HTML is, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and strip it. And then print it out. And then I'm going to close the file. All right, and then once we have done all that, we do want to include the header, so I left that commented out. All right, there's some slim chance this might actually work. Let's go find out. All right, and it blew up. That's okay. That's okay. I was winging it there. File not found. No such file named test.html. Well, what did I call the file then? It's in the CGI bin directory. Maybe it should have been in the web app directory. Yeah, it should have been in the web app directory because that's where that script is running. So did I crash it, or is it still serving web pages? Am I going to have to restart the daemon? Nope, it's still running. Okay. All right. A problem occurred in a Python script. Here's the sequence of function calls leading up to the error. Name. File is not defined. Well, it's fascinating. And it popped up this debugger. I don't know what deep magic let this happen. I mean, that's pretty cool. It prints the code right on the screen. I guess that's the influence of the HTTP library. I guess that's the influence of this. That's all I can guess. But of course, we can go and we can fix that error. My fault. So in vote selected, I did F is equal to rather than file is equal to. And then for some reason, yeah, I did. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. Right. Do that again. File is equal to open, and then for line in file, line equals line dot strip, and then print that line out. Save that. Go to the web client, access our voting poll again, pick somebody, call it. F.close, okay. File.close. I'm surprised that the server hasn't crashed though, that it's still managing to run that script. If I go and look at the shell, it's kicking out all the error messages, but it's happily running along. So I am impressed with that. I'm not impressed with my own coding abilities and that file confusion. Let's do this. And there, right? So we opened up a text file and we served it up. Let's check what that looks like. Well, that header and the paragraph don't seem to have any difference in their appearance, but we did not include the CSS in this. So if we go and we look at that script, vote selected, I know we have a reference to sending back the CSS, and I'm not seeing that. Well, I can just, how's that being generated? When I'm looking at one of these web pages, and I right click and I do view page source, I'm just pondering this myself. When I can set the title, what told it that that's our CSS? When I'm in here and I'm looking at the code that generates that web page, generates the voting page, then there's our header, Beatles Forever. Well, I guess we're going to go and look at yate.include header and see. So yate and include header. So where's it generating the CSS link? All right, that's a mystery to me. I don't know how. Well, I'm going to stop working on it, but this, I guess if I go to vote selected and I let it go ahead and send the header as well, because I had deleted those things, then maybe it'll have the insertion for that. So pick one, choose select. All right, now it's got our pretty formatting. Maybe I recall. If we go and we look at our daemon script, did we specify the CSS there? No, we did not. So it's a complete mystery to me what is generated in the line of code in our HTML that, where did that come from? Because what's generating that is too many things open. I don't know how to get these side by side to display what I actually want to see. Anyways, we've got vote selected here. And what this is doing is it's opening. I don't really know. Tell you what we're going to do. Nah, I'm going to stop fussing with it. There's no reason to keep fussing with it. But you saw what we did. We created a file and we opened it and we served it up. And what if, I mean, we could try to get clever with it. And where is my test.html? I could try to come up with some kind of substitution language, right? To where if we have some magical key phrase in it, then as I'm checking my code, excuse me, as I'm opening it and serving it out line by line, before I print it out, line equals line dot replace all instances of the word me with I, the master programmer. Save it. I keep going to the one. There we go. Right. And so when it opened up that file, it saw as it was printing it out line by line, when it found that key phrase, me, and we did a replacement on it to do I, the master programmer, right? So we are programmatically generating HTML to feed back to the client. So that's server-side programming. That's the cross-eyed, adulpated introduction to it. I hope that it made some sense. And I hope that we have a little bit of the idea that when you're doing the server-side programming, you have control over what you're passing back to the client, and you're programmatically constructing the web page in memory to send back as HTML rather than it being opened as a file. And file IO can be part of it, certainly, because that's probably where your template is going to be stored, that you then fill in with the parts that you want to fill in programmatically. But are there any questions? Who was able to play along with this? Did anybody get to play along with this? And it's okay if not, because I know that especially at the beginning, it was a rocky road. That's one reason why I like the classroom environment, is because I can go and look over people's shoulders and make sure that everybody gets it running. Whereas running it at home over watching a video would not have been as easy.
I more or less just paid attention to what was going on.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. All righty. So, like I said, I hope that was easy. I am deeply mystified by where this line in our code comes from. That, based on when we make this call here, include the header, somehow does that. And when we looked, because we can save this as our own file, right? Out file is equal to file, excuse me, out file is equal to open output.txt end quote for quote writing. And then we could append this to it, right? A file is equal to out file. We could just print it to that file and then we could close it. And then the next time it runs, it's going to save this line of our HTML, whatever we generated there, to our file. Now, if I go and look in that directory, I should see that file, output.txt. And there it is. This is all of the file that was generated by that template call right there. Hey, come back. That's actually a little bit more than I was expecting to see. Whoopsie. Yep, apparently all of that from there to there is generated by that one line here. So include header generates all of those lines of text. So I'm going to go look at include header one more time, and then I'm going to say, well, I guess we're done. So go back over here to Yate. Oh, I see why. It's opening up the header.html file, and it's the header.html file that's got all that stuff in it. So if I go and find template/header.html, which I will, there we go, templates, header.html. Okay, now that's making sense. Yeah, and there's our header, right? Okay, okay, all right. And it had the reference to the stuff that I was confused about. And so if we wanted to modify the header of the web pages that was coming to us, then we would modify that template file and it would serve it. All right, gang. I haven't checked to see who's turned in 2 projects and who's turned in 1 project or whatever. So what I'm going to do is we need to remember what day that the final is going to be. Just a sec. Let me go get that. So 11 o'clock Tuesday, Thursday classes are supposed to get together on Tuesday, May 12th. So what would be on the final? I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to not do a live. Well, I mean, I guess I could. I was going to record it as a separate video, but why don't I? Why? Let's just go ahead and do it now. The final is not going to be designed to be incredibly difficult and brutal. Its difficulty level should be no more than what the midterm was. It's going to cover some of the same material, right? I mean, it's not designed to be comprehensive, but on the other hand, you know, all of the stuff that you learned at the beginning is stuff that you still use throughout the semester. I'm pulling it up so that I can give you a good review. Okay, so some of these questions are just absolutely taken from the quizzes. So you might just open up the quizzes and step through the questions one after the other, doing a review to remind yourself. Okay, so which function outputs data to the console in a Python program? But that sounds like print, right?
Yep.
And match the appropriate data type, variable type for the data. So for a name, you would use a string. For the value of pi, you'd probably be a float, right? For your year of birth, you could use an integer, that kind of thing. Let's all right. So know your variable types. Know what a list is. Consecutive series of values, right? How do you declare a list? Do that and you put some values inside the braces. Know what a dictionary is. What's a dictionary? It is a set of key value pairs, right? So that, you know, the Spanish word red and the English word red, how do you set those values? Well, how do you make a dictionary? You can do it like this, and then how do you start adding values to it? It looks just like a list, except your subscript is not a numeric number. It's a key value. It's a key, and your key can be text or it could be any kind of data point. All right. When I'm going silent, it's when I'm scrolling past questions that are so easy, I don't even feel like mentioning them in a review. Like, what is used to begin an end of line comment? Well, we know what the comment symbol is. Yep, it's the hash symbol. Match the symbol with its meaning. What is a percent sign? That's modulus, right? What does star star mean? That's an asterisk. Yep, to the power of. Okay. So if you have this, if x is equal to 2.34, if you do int x, what is that going to return? And the answer is it's going to return 2. If you do round x, what's it going to return? It's going to return 2. If you do round x comma 1, it means preserve one place of precision after the decimal point, and you will get 2.3. What if this is 2.98? Well, integer of x would still be 2. Rounding it would be 3. And then rounding it to one digit looks like it would be 3.0. How do you import the functions log and square root from the math library? Then you would use an import statement. Like if I'm going to import pi from the math library, And this is multiple choice, by the way, so it's not like I'm going to try to trip you up. But, you know, from math, import PI. Just like we saw in our HTTP daemon. From HTTP server, import these two functions. All right, and so basic understanding of a loop would be a good idea. If you have a while statement, you know, while true, and then I forgot my colon, right? X is equal to int input something, right? And then if X is equal to -1 quit or break, sorry. If you have that code, then what is a minimum number of values that would be added to the list? You know, A dot, never can remember if it's add or append. But anyways, so like that, if you have this code snippet right here, what is the bare minimum number of values that would be added to the list? So your list starts off as empty, that's an empty list. And we get a number and we check, and if they typed in a -1, we break, else we add whatever they typed to the list. What's the minimum number of things that would be added to the list? Well, what happens if they type in -1 as the very first thing? Then nothing gets added to the list, right? So the answer would not be at least one thing gets added to the list. Now, what if it had been rewritten like this? While true, no, not while true. X is equal to 0, while X not equal to -1, colon. Let's get our input. X is equal to int input, and then A dot add X to it. What's the bare minimum number of values, depending upon user input, that would be added to the list? You see the difference in logic here? Here we get our input and we add it no matter what. There's no way of breaking, so you know that a minimum of at least one item will be added to the list. Whereas this way, since we're checking for a sentinel value and we're bailing out, no items would be added to the list if they typed in a -1 to begin with. All right, if you have loop statements like this, while X is less than 10, and you started X off as 3, and inside here there was a print X, and X plus equals 1, what would this print? Well, you could type it in and find out, right? But just piecing it through, X is going to start at 3, and then it's going to print
all the way to 9.
Yep, it's going to go all the way out to 9, but since it's less than 10, it's going to stop there. So that would be the output from that. If you have this, or X in range 1, 10, 2, what is the first argument? That's its starting value. That's where it's going to start. What is the second argument? It's the last value in the sequence plus 1. And then the third one,
Step size.
yeah, that's the step. That's the amount that it's going to increase each time. So what are loops good for anyways? This is just straight from the quizzes, right? Are they good for counting through a sequence of numbers? Yeah, that sounds good. Making choices in a program? You don't use a loop for making choices in a program. You use a decision statement, an if. So that wouldn't be a good answer. Running a set of statements a predictable number of times? I'm pretty sure that was a midterm question as well. Yeah, loops are great for running a set of statements a predictable number of times, and they're good for counting through sequences of numbers. But making choices in a program, that would be the bailiwick of if statements. Know the difference between and or. If you have X and Y, that means both of them have to be true for the result to be true. So if you have like if X and Y, if the temperature is less than 10 and the day is Monday, then do something, well, then the temperature had better be less than 10 and the day had better be Monday. Both of them need to be true, right? But if you have if X or Y, then it's enough for one of them to be true. One or the other must be true. And we've seen the truth tables before. What's the truth table for and look like? Those things look too similar to each other. F's and T's are hard to distinguish. Anyways, the only time that and will give you a positive result, a non-zero result, is when they're both inputs are true. So this would be the truth table for and. Right, the only time the result is true is when both inputs are true. How about or? One or the other is enough to be true. So the only time or is false is when both inputs are false. But if either one of them is true, then the result is true. All right, there's a codes example which says, which of the following describes the error in this code? And one of the choices is the loop control variable is not properly initialized. And another choice is the loop is infinite. Well, if we did not have this statement here and we never initialized X, then this statement would throw up an error because X did not have a value. So that would be it. The loop control variable is not, initialized. If you had this thing right here, these lines of code, but X plus equals 1 was missing, then yeah, we initialize it, but we never update it. So it's an infinite loop. Man, it's only the first class and I've already lost my voice. Okay, we know a lot about for loops, and so I'm not going to step through all of these questions one by one. You know what a Caesar cipher is. If you declare a string like this, and then you print out name subscript 2, what is name subscript 2? Well, what's name subscript 0? Name subscript 0 is F. So name subscript 1 is R, and name subscript 2 is E, and name subscript 3 is D. What if you do len of name? Well, that just returns the length of the string, right, which is 4. What about lists? If you have a list that looks like that, it's equal to 8675. Oh, stop that. 3. And then what is the length of L? 5, right? What is the index position of the 5 right here? What is this index value? What is this subscript? Well, that's subscript 0 and that's subscript 1. So the index value of 5 is subscript 2. What about the sneaky way of doing indexing, where instead of doing a positive number, like one of these things, we print out -1 here. This only works in Python. I've never seen any other language that does it. -1 means go to the end. So what is L subscript 0? That's 8. L subscript 1 is 6. L subscript -1 would be 3. L subscript -2 would be 4. L subscript -3 would be 5, and so on. It just counts backwards. If you have this and you try to access L subscript 5, what's going to happen? Well, let's count it out. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to crash. It's an out of bounds access. It's past the end of the list. So if you have something of length 5, the first index is 0. The last index is length -1, right? So 4. So there are several different ways of reading in files. Once you open a file, several different ways. There's the read command. You could do A is equal to f.read. What does that do? Reads the entire file in one fell swoop. There's also A is equal to f.read line. That reads a single line. And Jason pointed out that there's read lines, which reads the entire file in the form of a list, where each line in the file is an entry in the list. But anyways, so if I ask you what command you would use to read in the entire file, it would be .read. If I ask you what command reads in a single line, it would be that. If I was going to write code that read from a file line by line, would I use either one of these? No, I would probably just do that syntax that I did in the sample that we were looking at. For line in file, you know, strip it and print it out and do something with it. Do something with line. If you're going to open a file for reading, you do R. If you're going to open a file for writing, you either do W, which replaces the file, or A, which appends to the file, doesn't erase it. W would erase the file each time it's opened, and A leaves the contents of the files and writes something else to it. So more about list operations. Oh, I wish it wasn't doing that. There. If you declare your list, then what would this do? What does .index do? It returns the index value of that element. So we better see it print, well, that would be 0, and that's 1. Or not.
May delete this question.
Let me change
Oh,
it back.
parentheses.
Yeah.
Parentheses. Okay, right. It's
Sorry,
a function.
my mic's been off.
Yeah, it's a function call, right? So it searches a list for that value and returns its index value, which in this case would be 2, right?
Oh, yeah.
What if you wanted to delete one of the elements of the list? If you did this, delete list subscript 1, it's just going to remove that from the list. And afterwards, the list is going to look like this. Because we removed item 1. What if we insert into the list? L.insert. I'm going to insert the number 99 at position 0. Well, that means that the 99 is going to be the new subscript 0. So everything else is going to get pushed down by 1. So after that happened, then it would look like this. And I realize I've gone over time, but anybody who needs to bail, you can go ahead and bail and then watch the end of the video. If we do something like this, we just need to figure out what element is being changed. Subscript 2 is that one. So when we're done with that assignment, that would be an 88. How do you make an empty list? That's an empty list. Kissed. How do you make an empty dictionary? Oddly enough, if you make an empty set, it'll also treat it as an empty dictionary. But if you use empty quotes, that's just a string. And this would be the most useless of all. That would be an empty tuple. The idea of an empty tuple is so obnoxious, I'm just going to get rid of that. The other way to create an empty dictionary is like this. That's actually readable to my eyes, right? Once you've created your empty dictionary, I've already talked about this, but if you do, then what is the key being inserted and what is the value being inserted? Well, the key is Fred and the value is 30. Yep. List comprehension. We haven't done a lot of list comprehension, but if we have done some examples of it. So if we have this list, L is equal to 2, 4, 6, 8, and then we try to make a new list like this, X times 2 for every X in the list, then what will L2 look like? Well, it's going to step through the list, and the new list is going to be built by applying this formula to every value in the list. And so at this time, when it's done, then it's going to equal 4, 6, 8. Wait, 4, 8, 12, 16, right? Because each one of these is going to be doubled by that. And so we've normally used list comprehension like to do data conversion. If you had this list, and you wanted to convert them to numbers, you could do L is equal to, please convert them all to ints. And when it was done, it would be equal to 1, 2, 3 without the quotes. So that's list comprehension. All right, write a function that matches the following specifications. The name of the function is something. The function parameters are named something and something. And the function returns those parameters added together or multiplied together or something like that. So surely by now you know how to write a function, right? So if we're going to write a function that, raises one value to the power of another one, then the result is equal to x star star y, and then return the result. Now, is that silly? Yes, of course it is. When you're looking at classes, what is the name, the function of the method you add that initializes the object? Well, that happens to be init, right? And what is the name of the method you add that converts the object to a string?
STR.
Yep, and that's str. And are there other ones that we could be interested in? Yes, of course, like the EQ function to check for equality, but I don't ask any questions about that, so. What am I doing? What keyword creates a class? The class keyword. If you have a statement of HTML that looks like this, P style is equal to color colon red. What is the tag and what is the attribute? P is the tag and style is the attribute. So if you have a tag like this, what would the closing tag be? Well, if you have a tag that looks like that, then the closing tag is /p, right? If you have a tag called h1, then the closing tag is /h1, and so on.
Which were self-closing tags again?
Yeah, well, every one of these, a tag has to have a closing tag to be correct, except for tags where it's meaningless to enclose them, like a line break. And really, there's only two self-closing tags that I can think of. But BR stands for line break. And it does not make any sense to think of something as being enclosed within line break tabs, right? Because it's just a line break. How could you put something inside of a line break? So that's invalid syntax. It's silly. So self-closing tags mean that don't go looking for a close tag. It is done now. Just like the image tag. If you have an image, then does it make sense to have to do this? No, because what would you put here, right? The image is already all specified and everything. There's nothing that goes between image tags. It is a self-closing tag as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, that makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But the vast majority of tags require closing tags. So every tag except self-closing tags, such as BR and image, require a closing tag. And the closing tag is just the same tag with a slash put in front of it. All right, and really that's pretty much it. So I bet anybody who takes it's going to do a pretty good job on it. So don't panic. And what day did I say that we had to be here to do it? Tuesday. Everybody, please log on Tuesday and you can ask questions during runtime, right? During real time, and I'll answer the questions. And if any of the questions are weird, then everybody's going to get to hear my answer to you. So it'll kind of be of a collaborative effort. That's
Is it the last day since I'm doing 2 projects? Is the last day you want us to? Because I've already submitted 1 project and got that graded.
right.
I'm still working on my linked list. Did you want to have that by the 10th?
I would like to have it by the 10th, but I already know, looking at your work, that you've done enough work to blow off the final already. But I want you to go ahead and finish your project to your satisfaction. But yeah,
Okay.
so if you get it in by Monday night, and I will grade all the projects Monday night and let people know what, yeah, you should come in and take the final, because this really wasn't a very good project. But for those of y'all who are doing 2 projects, you already know that my current feelings about your projects, which are pretty dang good.
Okay. Yeah, because then I'll just probably submit mine on the 12th when everyone takes their final. Because I just want to keep adding as much.
Oh yeah.
As I can. I just want.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Is that fine if I do? Because I have enough now that I can probably submit today, but I also just kind of want to take the weekend and.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'd like to see you. Continue to work on it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's what I'll do then.
All righty, gang. Are there any other questions? I will upload these notes as notes to the Z2 folder. And I will post the date of the final here and our announcements. Let's see, those came in. All righty. All righty. So I've completely lost my voice, so I'm not going to really be able to hang out immediately.
Yeah.
Would it be okay if we hooked up tomorrow?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, it's usually today's my wife's day off, so I like to spend the day with her.